Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. Today I'm joined by Rachel Moore, and Rachel is a Collaborative Divorce Institute Fellow and has a private practice devoted exclusively to collaborative law, facilitative mediation, and representing parties using mediation and for divorce. So she does this. She's an attorney. She's also a former client of mine. And we have an interesting story to get into here, but I wanted to bring Rachel on to be able to talk about her business. I think it's an important business, and one of the reasons I started this podcast in the first place was to help bring on my clients to be able to promote their business. So what better than to have this type of conversation? So Rachel, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, it's cool to be here. We're in my office at Dreamtown, and a couple of years ago, we met here for our initial conversation, and early 2020. And who would have thought what we went through during the purchase process and what we've gone through in the past couple of years? How have you handled it all?
Wow, that was definitely, when I look back at that meeting, that was the before times. And I just thought, let's buy a house. And now we're in the house, working from home and all the time. And it worked out well. So I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, I mean, that was so interesting going through that process, because when we were working together, everything was changing, where all the restrictions were being put in place and nobody knew what was going to happen. And I remember even your closing, it was where the title company drove up to your house and they had you sign the documents outside. I mean, it was just, we were all just trying to figure it out at that time.
That is definitely true. We found the house pre-COVID. We moved in during COVID and hoping to be there post-COVID someday. Someday.
Well, it seems like we're getting closer. I mean, we're here in the office, so that is definitely one thing. So a lot of people have lived together a lot for the past 2 years and probably gotten underneath each other's skin a little bit and maybe decided to make a change in their relationships, their marriages. What have you seen over the past couple of years in regards to that?
In some ways, I've seen COVID impact my business and relationships, and in some ways, I haven't. So I would say in some ways, it's just been the status quo. People get married, people are having babies, people are getting divorced, people are dying. Life has just gone on despite COVID. I will say, I guess, here's a colorful story. In the beginning of COVID, a lot of people suddenly were at home a lot more, and I got numerous calls, like as many calls in the first couple weeks as I normally get in a year, of spouses who had caught their spouse cheating. And
at the beginning? How?
Yes, because they were home and their phone was there and they couldn't hide it at work anymore, I guess. I mean, it was like, whoa. And normally I get like 3 calls a year about that. And this was like 3 calls in a week. And then the next week, 3 more. And I was just like, whoa. So that was the first COVID thing I noticed that was different. And then I don't know. I don't have the statistics. I don't know if there are more divorces or not more divorces. But then we moved to Zoom. And that was actually a really amazing transformation. The court has moved to Zoom. Mediation has moved to Zoom. And that is actually, in terms of access to justice, that has expanded access to justice for people to not have to go downtown and park and arrange childcare and to be able to just Zoom to court quickly. Mm-hmm. In terms of mediation, I think it's improved mediation, and it's something that will be here to stay even when we can be in person.
How has it improved mediation by not being in person?
By being able to be on Zoom, there's no time traveling to mediation. So you can pick a mediator who's not close to your house or your office. In terms of collaborative divorce, which is a mediation model where we have 2 attorneys and 2 parties and maybe some other professional people involved, scheduling all those people in one location was the biggest pain in the neck. And now everyone can just pop on from their home or their office or their car. And as long as you're in a safe, quiet place, you can Zoom from anywhere. You can Zoom from out of town on vacation. And so that's just made scheduling easier. But also people are in their own safe space, and there's no awkward interaction with the other party. People can have like pets with them, which I'm allergic to.
People have pets while they're in their mediation?
Yeah. If the pet is comforting to you, you can totally have your pet with you. You can even smoke a cigarette. It's not going to bother me because I'm not there. Yeah. So I think it just gives people a sense of safety and security as well.
Now, what got you into this? I mean, did you come from a home of a happy marriage, or did you experience divorce?
No comment. My parents have been together since high school. They are basically one person at this point. And my interest was just in child advocacy was how I entered law school. And then I worked at a domestic violence agency. And I'm dating myself here, but I watched a lot of LA Law. And I really liked it. And so I wanted to be an attorney based on that. And I was a hardcore litigator for 12 years. And I never even heard of mediation. I certainly wasn't interested in it. I loved going to court. I loved winning in court. And then when I left, I was at the Attorney General's office for 8 years. And when I left there, I went to a high net worth family law firm, assuming that I would love working with people and I would love litigating. And I hated every single minute of it. And,
really?
And I just felt that it was the worst litigation and the worst interactions with people I had in my whole life.
Or because the couples hated each other so much?
Everybody hated everybody. It was just all the time hatred. And I felt like things that we were going to court over were not things that were winnable, truly, for the most part. So it wasn't like you prepared a trial and you went to trial and you won. It was just going to court over and over these little things. And then when I did them, the firm allowed me to go to and paid for me to go to a mediation training program. So I'm really lucky that I had that opportunity. And I was like, oh, this would work for family law, because it's not a one person wins, one person loses situation almost all of the time. So it's really how are we going to do this? What's the best way to do this? A problem-solving model that works for family law as opposed to going to court. So,
I mean, are there a lot of people that do what you do, or is this something that is just new or innovative?
It's really not super new or innovative. I certainly don't claim credit for any of it. It is definitely all over the country. People do mediation and people do collaborative divorce. It's more popular in some places than others. And I think that there's sort of an old guard to some extent in Cook County that thinks you go to court, you fight a lot, that's how lawyers make money. But more and more, as people train in mediation and collaborative divorce, they find it not only is it a good model for clients, but it's a nice way to practice your profession and makes you feel better about what you do every day.
So walk us through the process. I mean, does each party still have their own attorney and then come meet with you, or both parties just come to you and then you talk about what things need to be decided?
Yes.
Okay.
all of that and more. So there's two things. One is mediation and the other is collaborative divorce. And collaborative divorce is a mediation model. So mediation is where you have a neutral party who's there to facilitate decision making. So the parties can come without attorneys, just the two of them and me. I work for both of them. I'm retained by both of them. My goal is just to facilitate the discussion, help them reach agreements. I don't give them legal advice in that role at all. I'm just the mediator. I do have outlines when it's a divorce of what the court expects them to talk about, and we work through those outlines. Obviously, then they can also add anything that they want to talk about. So it's customized to their agenda. Collaborative divorce is a mediation model where each person retains an attorney who's also trained as a mediator, and the four of you meet to co-facilitate this decision-making process, but you get to wear both hats, both the attorney and the mediator. So I can meet with my client, let's say it's the husband. He and I will sit and have meetings and talk about, best case, worst case scenarios, different options. How does he feel about this or that? I give him legal advice and information. Then the four of us meet together, and I'm in that meeting, even though I am his advocate, I'm also there to co-facilitate the meeting. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a bright line between one model and the other all the time, because you can also have attorneys participate in mediation. You can also have a mediator present in a collaborative meeting to facilitate it. So
whatever helps.
Whatever helps, whatever gets you through the day, and whatever the clients feel most comfortable with. And just as long as everyone's clear on what their role is in a particular case.
Do they teach you in law school how to negotiate? Because I feel like that's such a major part of what you're doing.
I can tell you that what they taught me in law school versus what I do as a Venn diagram would only have the teeniest little overlap at this point.
Really?
But I think there are people who take more specific negotiations or mediation courses. I never had that opportunity.
But I'm sure through the experience that you could probably teach the course now.
Well, I do. I do coach divorce mediation at Northwestern School of Continuing Studies.
Really? So who comes to that? The different attorneys, or how many people actually are in the, learning more about that to do this?
It's a 40-hour program. They do it a couple times a year. Attorneys come to it. They have a regular mediation and they have a family law mediation. I've taken both. They're both excellent. I'll make a pitch for that. They're both excellent courses. Attorneys come to it. Therapists come to it. HR people come to it to learn mediation skills. I mean, I've used these skills dealing with my in-laws. So I would say they're beneficial all the time for everyone.
Just dealing with them in general?
Just communicating. Let's say that.
Yeah. No, that could be useful for many, many people out there for sure. What are some of the things that you've seen where this type of divorce would be different than what you've seen? Like what's a good example of a story that you've seen that would be so much more of a benefit that you dealt with here in this way as opposed to what you saw previously?
Sure. I think it's a benefit for anyone who will do it. If both parties will participate in mediation or collaborative divorce, or even a more traditional back and forth negotiation outside of court, they should do that. Like, the courts are clogged with people who just want to get divorced, who are sort of caught up in this system and don't really need to be there. And I'll say first, the people who should be in court, if you're trying to divorce an abusive or mentally ill person who refuses to divorce you, you are going to need the court to order certain things and make things happen. For most people, though, once the reality has set in that this is going to happen, they can come to the table and work it out with the right support. And so I really believe the more I do this, the more it's beneficial for most people. That said, to give you examples, specifically, it's really nice for people with special needs children because we can work in a collaborative way to drill down, to really make a schedule or whatever other provisions are needed, keeping that child's best interest in mind in a way that the court just has too much going on or doesn't maybe have that expertise. We can bring in whatever experts we need, whoever the parents want to consult with, and do much more detailed work. I've had situations where, once children turn 18, that's pretty much it. Paying for college is the only other issue on the table, or a special needs trust. But other than the financial, courts don't really talk about parenting time or holidays for children over 18. But as you know, we're still very close to our families, even after we're 18, especially a kid in college. Where do they come home to?
Right.
So we can talk about that in collaborative and work out a solution so that doesn't get ignored. I've had people who own businesses or own family businesses, and we can really drill down and hire the right appraisers or valuators so that they're not wasting money fighting over something that just needs the right person to lend an expertise. It's just a way of coordinating the process.
I imagine that must be pretty complicated. And it's, you talk about high net worth individuals, think about Bill and Melinda Gates or Bezos. Like, how do they extrapolate that? I mean, this is not everybody, but some people say, oh, you need to get a prenup. I mean, how do you prevent these types of issues from the get-go? And I mean, do you also sometimes refer people to marriage counselors because you can see that there's an opening to, for them to reconcile?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, yes. I mean, sometimes people want to reconcile, and there's regular marriage counseling. There's also something called discernment counseling, which is sort of a set series of conversations with a therapist. That's becoming more popular now. I always say I'm divorce neutral. Like, I'm not going to tell someone to get divorced or not get divorced. I'm just there to do the paperwork. So, all the time I give people referrals to marriage counselors if they want it. In terms of the Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates kind of divorces, I can't say that I do that. That's not really who I'm seeing.
You need to go to court for
on
that.
The day-to-day. You don't need to go to court. And I'm guessing that everyone goes to court to get a judgment entered.
Right.
But you don't, just because you have more doesn't mean you have to fight more, or that you can't deal with it in a collaborative way. So, and in fact, I would say that a lot of times it's a lot easier to divide assets than it is to divide debt. So if there are more assets on the balance sheet, it gives you all the more flexibility to have sort of creative solutions.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our supporters.
Moving day is a happy day, but how can you be sure all of your stuff will get to the new place in the same condition they left the old place? Upgrade your experience to First Class Moving and Storage. You'll get a team of professionals who treat all of your belongings with care and have the right tools to make the job go smoothly. They even offer a full packing service. Upgrade to First Class Moving and Storage. They're local and independently owned. For more info, visit the website at firstclassmovers.com. That's the number 1, stclassmovers.com.
Hi, I'm Aaron Masliansky, longtime Skokie and Evanston resident, host of Inside the Skev, and local real estate expert. As a community connector and realtor with Dreamtown Realty in downtown Evanston, I know firsthand what makes the Skev such an amazing place to live. When I'm helping my clients buy and sell properties inside of the Skev or out, I'm doing it with the best technology and support team behind me at Dreamtown. During the pandemic, I've been able to help my clients seamlessly stay on track with their home search. From immersive 3D Matterport tours, professional photos, to virtual open houses, my clients can find their homes safely and comfortably, and even from their couch. When you're ready to make a move, know that I'll be here to help. You can always find out more about me at skevinston.com/real estate. Again, that's skevinston.com/real estate, or email me at aaron@skevinston.com. Do you foresee that this is going to continue to grow? Do you have people working with you, or are you solo practice right now?
I'm totally solo right now. I do have a lot of amazing colleagues who also do collaborative and mediation. So when someone comes to me and says they want to do a collaborative divorce, then I say, the first thing you need to do is talk to your spouse and make sure that they're going to hire someone who's also trained in collaborative divorce. Yeah. I think the word is getting out. I would say 10 years ago, hardly anybody had heard about it in Illinois. It wasn't as, I wouldn't say no one had heard about it, but I think in the last 10 years it's grown, and I hope in the next 10 years it grows even more. It's definitely, people say things at the end like, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, or I know you were my spouse's attorney, but you really helped me work on this. And, it's just a way of saying, we don't have to burn everything to the ground just because we're getting divorced.
Yeah. Can you only work with people in Illinois, or because it's on Zoom, can you really talk to anybody now?
That is a good question. I have an Illinois law license. Mediators are not licensed in any particular state. So I will say at this point, all of my clients for mediation or my attorney work are all Illinois based. Okay.
How do you find to make sure that they've gone through the training and finding the right type of mediator? Is there a website that people go to?
There's a lot of different ways. I find a lot of people do go to couples counseling, and a lot of marriage therapists then refer people to mediators. There is the Collaborative Divorce Illinois website that people can go to. Those are people who are trained in mediation and collaborative divorce, and who do continuing education in collaborative divorce every year.
Yeah. Man, does it ever get you down, working in this field? What does your husband think about, as you go through this process every day, you're working on divorce? Is he quaking in his boots?
No, I don't think so.
He's such a nice guy, by the way.
Yes, he is such a nice guy.
Yes.
No, it's interesting because I did work at a domestic violence agency, and I did work at the Attorney General's office for 8 years. So I would actually say that these are the nicest, best, calmest, most wonderful clients I've ever had. And they're all people who are just in a transition in their life. And again, maybe it's self-selecting. I don't have the nasty, horrible go-to-court divorces right now. I have people who just, maybe they got married right out of college, and 25 years later, they're like, yeah, this isn't working anymore. Or, maybe I don't know, like, what else do I have? I just basically have people who, for whatever reason, they need to make a change in their life, and I help them do it in the least destructive way. And I have a lot of clients who just would rather have more for their children than their divorce attorney, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, and it gets to be, sometimes I get involved in types of situations like this too, where people need to sell a home or buy new places because they're moving out of there. So it's a delicate situation for sure. But if you handle it the right way, then, people go about the rest of their lives peacefully. I want to ask you, by the way, with the state's attorney, job that you had, what was that like? I mean, what types of cases were you dealing with? And
that's a whole other podcast. I did, for the most part, defense litigation for state employees and agencies. I did civil rights cases in federal court. I did administrative proceedings. I did a lot of, that's a whole other, I could write a book on those years. And that was really a feeling that you were part of something larger than yourself, being part of a government agency. I have to say I was very proud to be part of that agency and to do that work. But to be on my own now, I can do everything the way I want to do it. And that freedom to help your clients exactly the way you want to is really nice.
It's much more entrepreneurial, but I get it, where you're part of that larger organization helping everybody. I mean, it's always in the news, and there's always different things going on. I just remember, this is not state's attorney. I was just serving jury duty, but I remember the R. Kelly cases going on.
Wow.
And all the news reporters and everybody around there, and it's just a lot of pressure, I imagine, right?
I was frequently in the newspaper, but it was all under my maiden name. So that chapter is in the past.
Definitely. Yeah.
You need to know my maiden name if you want to Google that.
Well, I'm sure you could find it.
I'm sure somebody could find it. I had a case about horse meat. That was actually one of the most publicized and one of the more colorful cases I had in 8 years there, where Governor Blagojevich, you might remember him, decided to shut down the horse meat factory in Illinois. They were making horse meat for human consumption. And obviously many people were in favor of that, and many people were quite opposed to that. And so they passed a law that you could no longer make horse meat for human consumption, which effectively put the one factory in Illinois out of business, and they
kind of remember that.
Challenged it. It got a lot of publicity.
Yeah. What ended up happening?
What did end up happening? It was a long time ago. I think you can prohibit it.
Okay.
There's no reason you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Just any kind of statute. Now, what is your advice to people who are just thinking about stuff right now, where thinking about getting a divorce? What are the first steps that they should do?
I think that they should do whatever they need to do to think about whether emotionally they need to do this. So talk to a friend, talk to a therapist, go to couples counseling, really make sure emotionally this is where you are and what you need to do. Then financially, you're going to have to realize that unless you are a millionaire, billionaire, or unless you are, a legal aid client, most of us are living on two incomes.
Yeah.
And in one household. So if you're two incomes in one household, you're going to need to think about how that's going to look in two households. And you need to sort of think financially how you're going to do this. That can either be on your own or with a CPA or with an attorney. I will say there are many people, though, who come into this without any financial information. And the first thing we do is financial information gathering and just education about the status quo.
Yeah.
And then emotionally, financially, and then legally you should have a consultation or more than one consultation with an attorney. And you want to think about, legally, do I want to do this? What are the legal ramifications to a divorce? And in large part, you need to think about what process you want. Do you want to go to court? And do you need to go to trial? Do you need to get an emergency order of protection to protect you from an abusive spouse? Because that is a route that a lot of people need to take. Or can you do this in a way like mediation or collaborative divorce? And do you want to get on that track from the get-go and sort of take control of the process that way? So I think it's valuable to have more than one consultation. And again, to sort of assess where you are financially, and the lawyer should also be able to help you do that as well.
It's a lot to think about.
It's a lot.
Don't want to be going there. But sometimes it's worth it, right?
Your wife is lovely also.
My wife is lovely, yes. And I intend to stay with her for a long, long time.
Good. And like I said, I am divorce neutral because if I had to think about whether or not people should get divorced, that's way above my pay grade. Yeah. I just help people do what they want to do.
So if people want to talk to you about it and figure things out, how do they get in touch?
How do they get in touch? Well, they go to my website, rachelmoorelaw.com.
Easy enough.
Or they call me, which I think is 847-868-0430.
Okay, and they'll all be on the website here, so it's in the show notes. So if you need to reach Rachel confidentially, you'll be able to go ahead and do so. Well, it's a lot to think about. It's not the typical type of episode of Inside the Skev, but I think that it's important. I mean, we have different professionals from all different businesses, industries, and this is not necessarily a happy type of thing to have to think about, but it's important. You're here in Skokie, and I think that it's if you're looking for somebody who's an expert on this, Rachel is outstanding. So, Rachel, I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I definitely, I don't think anybody thinks that they can't wait to get divorced or they dream of it for their future. But a lot of people find themselves in that situation, and it doesn't have to be a disaster. It doesn't have to be a financial disaster. It doesn't have to destroy your family. There are ways to do it that preserve the good.
And I think this is the way. So I appreciate you offering this.
Thank you.